Where is it? Just looking at the old trusty training log right now. It's Friday, so you know what that means. It's another training log. Let's get into it. I'm Carl Ragavan, Europe's original starting strength coach. This is Beautiful Strength. Welcome to the show. So those of you keeping up to date with how my training log's been going, I had a couple weeks in the UK. So my heavy day routine for my Thursday, Friday has slightly evolved. So I was really happy with how my squat progress has been going, even though my main focus has been on press and deadlift with a little bit of light weightlifting. So I've had to address how things have been, and you know, it's just the scenario of how squatting goes for me. Some people get this on certain lifts, even just by accident. Your lift, which you're technically and have better strength and mastery over, they just get strong no matter how you program them, whether you're keeping them on the back burner or pushing full steam ahead. And I definitely feel like my squat has kind of been like that, which is nice problem to have. But my deadlift and my bench, those are the more problematic lifts. So like I said, this focus has been more press and deadlift. And so I've slightly altered my heavy day Thursday, Friday routine. So on Thursdays, I'm now doing some snatching, clean and jerks, and then deadlift. So it's like a heavy pull session. And then on my heavy Fridays, I've got a heavy press, whether that's 3.0, which is double layback, or strict for some singles. And then I have either high or low pin press, and then I have some inclines. So those of you who don't know, I've kind of been basically just doing dips. I haven't done any flat bench for, I don't know, at least a good 10 plus weeks or so. And again, the bench is not my real focus. Inclines are mainly just for hypertrophy, and also just to round out my pressing. So those of you who are familiar with the double layback press, there is some slight incline to that press, but I wouldn't necessarily say like it's an incline press, because my inclines are quite weak in relation to what my press is. So I would say more or less the incline has a better correlation to building some flat bench. So, you know, because I'm not doing any flat bench, or as we just call bench. So yeah, dips and inclines is kind of my bench work. So on the snatch, I'm doing 80 kilos for doubles. The interesting thing is I've not done much work where you have to like lower it down. And that was back in the old days where they actually always used to have to lower the weights down. So it was kind of interesting to kind of lower down 80 kilos, bring it back, reset. I definitely feel like it feels like a good practice of bar path. So 80 kilos felt really good for doubles. You'll see my last double today. On the clean and jerks, again, I'm doing doubles, but I thought I'd do a slight different twist as opposed to doing 2 full cleans. That's when you catch it in the full front squat. So the first clean is a power, and then I push jerk it. So push jerk is my regular jerk variation. I haven't done much splits for a while. So the first rep is a power clean and push jerk. And then my second rep is a full clean and jerk. Again, push jerk. So again, a little bit extra practice doing power cleans. Being a starting strength coach, you know, I'm a big advocate. But also the interesting thing is, you know, 100 kilo clean is quite light for me. So the power clean is quite it almost fatigues me a little bit. So when I actually come to that second clean, I actually do want to get under it. Kind of got that power out of my system. And so I am probably more aggressive at diving under it because I've kind of juiced myself out doing the first power. So this is a new variation. Again, when the clean and jerk for doubles is light, you know, I'll be happy to run this, and maybe as it gets increasingly heavier, I might have to do 2 cleans. So we'll see how that goes. It's just a little bit of an experiment, but that's what I'm kind of assessing from there. The deadlifts, I'm now moving into a routine where previously I was doing haltings and rack pulls. So I've ran that up to similar numbers that are kind of all-time bests. So haltings for like 260 for triples, and then 320 for a set of 3. You know, 4 is my best. So those are kind of where my all-time strongest numbers are at haltings and rack pulls. So I'm just switching gears a little bit, and I'm doing a couple of singles with straps from the floor on the deadlift, and then depending on what grip I'm going to rotate between a couple of back off sets, either hook or mixed. And for the Friday, had some heavy presses. So again, that's using some double layback. Interesting, what's happened as well is doing a heavy deadlift on Thursday. I definitely feel like, especially warming up and doing my first rep at 130 on the press, the back is fatigued because I just did a couple of heavy deadlifts on Thursday. But here's the thing about training. You can train sore, and obviously that's within the discretion of the lifter. There's obviously some intelligence there, but it's quite interesting because, you know, my understanding is, you know, if I can do 130 after deadlifting heavy on Thursday, that means, you know, technically and from a recovery standpoint and some fatigue, if I can do 130 taxed, then I'm doing all right. But definitely this is the first week of doing this new rotation of heavy deadlifts on Thursday. Usually I personally like to program deadlifts on the Friday. So this is an interesting kind of split for me. So that the first press felt pretty tough, even though it looks kind of fine on film, it felt tough. So I did a single with 130 and 132. And then on the high pin presses, this was very interesting because 167.5, I've been doing just singles whereas I'm trying to get a couple more reps in. So I did 3, but I knew they were messy, and it was just me being impatient. So anyone who's new to pin presses, this happens a lot. I very rarely do this, but I think because I moved from doing heavy singles, just a token 1 rep, to trying to crank out a triple, on the 2nd and 3rd rep, I'm in a rush to try and get my chest under the bar. But on pin press, you need to stay in your layback, let the bar just ease off the pins, and then you're slowly trying to glide under the bar. If you're in a rush, the minute you're pressing off high pins, if you're immediately trying to lean forward and get your chest under the bar, you're actually going to push the bar forward. But again, 167 is a weight for me where I could kind of blag it. It could be a bit forward and I could save it. So again, 170 and above, I don't really want to be pushing the bar forward, but generally speaking, for efficiency. But you'll really see from the 1st rep and then 2nd and 3rd, you can see I kind of push them forward. And like I already mentioned, I've thrown in a couple more inclines, kind of just as like bench assistance work, low key bench assistance work, and did 120 for some triples. So you'll see the last triple. Hope you liked today's training log, and if you did, comment, like, share, subscribe. You know the business. I'm Carl Ragavan. That was Beautiful Strength, and remember, the barbell never lies.